Listen, we live in an age of instant information, so isn't it strange that things have been hidden away from us? Governments think we need to gain their trust, but it's the other way around. Just take a look. Nothing tells us more than raw data does, so it's important it's all available to us. Plus, put up for debate and looked at by the public's gaze, because there's a lot.
Hello, and welcome to the Tech Dirt Podcast. I'm Mike Masnick. Each week here on the podcast, we normally start with me doing an essay or a rant about the topic of discussion for the day, leading into the actual discussion with our usual co-hosts or maybe some guests. Today's will be a little bit different, as I'm going to go back in history just a little bit to tell a story, though it will all make sense pretty quickly. In the fall of 1994, I was a sophomore in college, and my roommates and I randomly decided to hit up the local indie movie theater to see this black and white movie that we'd seen a preview for the previous week. And thus was my introduction to Clerks, a movie that became an instant classic in my brain for a variety of reasons. The dialogue, of course, was fantastic. I had also been spending the previous summers and assorted breaks working as a clerk at a bagel store on Long Island, so I identified deeply with the experience. I actually ended up seeing the movie a few more times and picked up the soundtrack as well, and it was only a few weeks later that someone mentioned that the writer and director of the film, Kevin Smith, was actually in the movie playing the role of Silent Bob. And it struck me as somewhat hilarious that whoever wrote so much wonderful dialogue gave himself a role in the film that only contained a single line of dialogue for himself. From there, I continued to follow Smith's movie career, and here and there became aware of his related activities, including his famed Q&A sessions. Jump forward to 2008, I was heading off on a cross-country drive, and I realized that maybe I should finally see if I could figure out how to listen to these podcast things, and downloaded a bunch of random ones that I'd heard about, including one that Smith did with his friends called Smodcast, leading to hours of entertainment and a number of offshoot podcasts, each as entertaining as any other. Around this time, Kevin also joined Twitter and took to it naturally, which wasn't a huge surprise, given his previous efforts at building an online community on his own site. Of course, during all this time, I'd been writing about the internet, innovation, and business models, in particular, content business models, and watching too many content creators, including many that I liked, struggle to adapt, sometimes pushing their fans away or even insulting them. So it was actually really exciting to see the ways in which Kevin continued to experiment, to try a variety of things, some of which succeeded and some of which did not, but to continue to innovate, to adapt, and all while continuing to connect with and build his fan base. Rather than blame the internet, Kevin dove in headfirst, tweeting up a storm, sharing all sorts of details about his life, and always being open to chat with his fans. Rather than give up when people said that the internet was killing content creators, Kevin embraced the new medium of podcasting, building up his own podcasting network. Rather than whine about things like movie piracy or declining investment in movie making, Kevin talked about how it brought in new fans and allowed him to try out different models, like touring with his own movie and conducting his famous live Q&As after each showing. And thus, beyond the fact that I was a fan, starting 2 decades ago, I became incredibly interested in how Kevin was showing the way for other content creators in this digital age, where the roadmaps may be less clear, but where the old barriers have been completely washed away as well. Throughout it all, Kevin continued to experiment with a focus on always trying new things, embracing what the medium allows, embracing and connecting with his fans, and offering a variety of ways to support his efforts, frequently by giving away the abundant part of the content, such as the podcast, while charging for the scarcities, like the live appearances. Rather than pigeonholing himself as a filmmaker or an author or something like that, he was adapting and becoming a true storyteller. And not just that, but successfully building a business around that storytelling as well. Given all that, when we had the opportunity to sit down with Kevin Smith for the Tech Dirt podcast to discuss what he's done, the business of storytelling, how he views content creation today, what he thinks of the internet and content business models, along with a variety of other topics, I, of course, said, hell no, we won't do that. I'll just stick with our usual co-hosts. Or actually I said, hell yes, let's do it. And thus here we are, myself and co-host Dennis Yang, to have a discussion with Kevin Smith. Welcome.
That was lovely, dude. Like, if I wish everyone thought about me in those terms. Like, most people just think he sucks cock and they spell cock wrong. But that was insanely well thought out. It was, I sat there listening, going, God, what an impressive career. When somebody else explains it, from my perspective, it's always like, oh, we tried that, it didn't work. Tried that, it didn't work. But it's nice to see somebody look at it from the outside and be like, oh, he's trying to be innovative, because most people will just quickly be like, oh, he sucks, and and dismiss you for trying something different or stepping outside the box. And the first few times you get kicked for it, you're like, fuck, and then you just get used to it. In terms of, like, if you want to try something different, there's always going to be a never-ending parade of people telling you you're fucking stupid and stuff like that. So it becomes this, like, constant din of you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And it exists,
right? And
you acknowledge it from time to time because you can't not hear it. It's like having a pain factor of 3 for, like, a bad leg or something. So every day you're like, yeah, I can walk around, but I feel it every fucking day. So it's always nice when somebody nails you, and not the negative way. Like, there's always some people who can say shit about you, then they find that, the fucking holes in your armor where you're just like, oh man, like, that's what I think about myself too. But the flip side of that is when somebody, like, nails you. Like, your description of my career before we even started talking, I was like, oh my God, he saw it. Somebody saw it. You know what I'm saying? So at least somebody sees it. So it gives you a little juice to keep going. I was telling the folks last night during the Q&A, sometimes in life you just need motherfuckers to tell you skate. Like, go. So often in life people are like, don't skate, sit down, take your fucking skates off. Yeah. The people who you want to surround yourself with are the people like, skate, go for the horizon, don't fucking come back. I love you so much, don't fucking come back. Like, it's a pat on the back can go a long fucking way. And I'll be honest with you, like, during the Red State affair, while we were putting the movie out and stuff, Tech Dirt was the thing that made me feel fucking good about myself all the time. Other places would write about it and didn't know what we were doing or tried to explain. A lot of people were just like, he's charging fucking $60 to see a movie. That's not innovation. That's fucking theft. But, like, you guys would write about that or Smodcastle or the stuff we did online. And I would be like, thank God fucking somebody sees it. And that's all. Sometimes that's all it takes, dude, is like, one website, wasn't the world, wasn't like fucking Time Magazine says, it was Tech Dirt, and I was like, oh, thank God, fucking they noticed. So it was water in the desert, particularly during those times. Like, you can bookmark shit.
Right.
There are so many articles by you guys that are bookmarked at the top of my page, because whenever I felt fucking low or something, I was like, wait, what did Tech Dirt said good shit? And I'm like, yeah, these guys know the future. So when they said, hey man, they want to talk to you, I was like, oh my God, I would love to do that, because you were difference makers big time.
Oh wow.
For me, particularly for the ego, and it's not even just the ego, it's like sometimes you just want to know that you impacted or that anybody noticed, and you guys noticed, and I felt like, fuck, I don't know, that made a big difference to me. So thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you for doing that and for joining us. Obviously, one of the things that people talk about, with these kinds of things is with the experiments, right? Mm. People feel like, oh, if you fail, that's a bad thing,
right? And
they feel like you have to have everything planned out too, and how much of what you've done has been sort of planned out, or it's just kind of experiment as you go?
I push whimsy a lot, where I'm just like, let me see if this could work. And I could be talked off of anything very easily. So people could be like, that's stupid. I'd be like, you're right, and I'll put it down. But like Tusk was an instance where, I engaged the Twitter audience with the hashtag Walrus Yes, Walrus No.
Right.
And if there had been a majority of Walrus No, I would have been like, fuck it, you're right, it's a stupid idea. But, enough people were like, Walrus, yes. A bunch of people gave me a pat on the back and said, you are smart and good, whether it was smart and good or not. But it was just the kind of confidence that, like, a child needs. Adults are always telling kids, you're smart and good and stuff. Then you get older and nobody tells you that anymore, because, like, you're on your fucking own. So that's what I love about social media. You can always check in and feel the pulse of what you're doing at any given moment. So with that, I was like, Walrus yes or Walrus no? And a bunch of people are like, yeah, Walrus yes, why not? Now it's fucking sea of Walrus fuck no. Now that people have seen it and shit. But back in the early days of the idea, it was like, all right, let's see if they agree. If they agree, that's a pat on the back, enough confidence for me to kind of step forward. So for me, it's never like, here's a well-shaped idea, here's all the points well executed. All we have to do is enact this, and everything will work.
Right.
It's guesswork. You try. Like I loved doing the Red State tour, but the better version of that tour was the Jay and Silent Bob Super Groovy Cartoon Movie Tour, because we learned how to do the tour with Red State. Like with Red State, we rented a bunch of big theaters, and then all of a sudden it's up to you to fucking fill them. Whereas on Jay and Silent Bob Super Groovy Cartoon Movie, we would get a house, fill it up, and then if there was more, we could fill up another show and do that. So you get smaller than like 1,200, 1,500 seater. You get like a 300 seater or 400 seater, like a movie theater, and then sell it and spin it. And it's not an incredibly innovative idea. It's what movie theaters do. That's what they're in the business of doing.
Right.
So, for me, I was like,
but it was, it was still different, right? In terms of, like, that's not how most filmmakers were going.
What I did was I combined what I did on my one job with the other job. Like, I made movies, but I also went around theaters and did Q&A.
Right.
So I was like, well, I used to, in the very beginning, do Q&A after a movie. They'd see a movie and then you'd talk about it. But the people who like the stuff I do, they've seen the movie so many times. Eventually, I got to a point where I was like, we don't really have to fucking see the movie. Let's just go right to the Q&A. We've all seen the flick and stuff. And this was a weird return to, like, we're going to Q&A again, but after we watch this fucking movie. So I combined the two things, and I learned without thinking, and sometimes negatively so, like, my touring business is something that, like, I also live off of, especially in a world where I'm not getting paid a lot to make movies. Like when you have a studio deal, like when I was making Zack and Miri Make a Porno, it was the last movie I got paid a fuck ton of money to do. The rest of them, not very much at all by industry standards, and some of them I just didn't take a salary at all. Red State and Clerks 2, I didn't get any money on. I just wanted to make the fucking movie. So I'll always figure out where to pay for my life someplace else, standing on stage doing Q&A, one of those things. So I combined those two things with Red State, and I forgot, like, in giving all the revenue to Red State, that was a bunch of fucking money that I would have earned just standing there telling stories for myself that I'd given up for the movie. But that was part of the plan, like make sure the investors get paid back and shit, because you always hope that some other investor is going to come along and say, hey, I hear you paid these guys back, and it works out and stuff. So you figure things out as you go. Like after the Red State tour was announced, I figured out, oh, fuck, I'm going to be broke. I didn't make any money making the movie, and now I'm giving all the money from the movie and my touring away to the production and stuff. So at that instance, like I went and wrote a book instead. That's where Tough Shit came from. I was like, all right, I'll earn from writing this, and that'll augment that so I can do this. You always got to be willing to let go of money. That's it. Anybody can fucking innovate. And of course, if you've got a lot of money like Elon Musk, you can constantly innovate and do whatever the fuck you want, man. But for those of us that don't have a lot of means but have a lot of dreams, you can always find some way to kind of express yourself or do it that you hadn't before, and you just got to let go of expectation of loot. Like I looked at my wife as the perfect example. My wife married me. We've been married like 16, 17 years almost, right? 17 years ago, my wife's a gorgeous fucking woman. Could have fucking done far better than me. I'm punching way above my weight class. And what she did was, she looked at the landscape, who she dated, who I was, and shit like that. And in my estimation, she just lowered her standards a little bit. Basically, she was like, well, I could shoot high, and then it might take longer, and maybe the guy's an asshole or something like that. But this guy's all right, and fucking I could deal with him. And if I just lower my standards a little bit, and maybe it's not standards, maybe it's lower my expectations, we should say. If I just lower my expectations, maybe shit'll work out. So I've always kind of looked at that and said, all right, well, just lower your expectations. Like, you can't start every new venture going, this is going to fucking rock their socks. Rock your own socks. Yeah. Everyone else is secondary and gravy. Impress you, make you happy. Because if you live your life trying to make, other people happy, an audience happy, whatever the fuck, you'll be sad forever and stuff. But boy, if you want to make yourself happy, it's easy. It's easy. Set little goals, but you got to manage those expectations. So you can't go man, this Red State tour is going to revolutionize fucking... No, not at all. People had four-walled movies before and stuff like that.
Right.
But I hadn't. And I got to be at every public screening of that film in North America, something I can't say for all the other movies and stuff. It was like a church revival more than just doing movie exhibitions. So you set these weird goals for yourself. I mean, number one and most important one was pay back whoever fucking paid for this. But personally... you're not I want to see myself on the cover of this magazine, or you can't expect that kind of shit. Nobody can really plan for that. you know, there's some movies that they pour a lot of money marketing and stuff, and you're aware of them. But generally speaking, like the audience kind of creates enthusiasm for what they like and stuff.
Right.
I'm lucky enough to have a big enough audience that like I can pretty much skip from project to project and kind of whimsy down life's lane where I'm like, let me try this, and you know, fucking master of no trades, jack of all trades, master of none except fucking baiting. So the idea of like being able to do that comes from that audience, right? Like it's not big, but it's big enough, you know? And so at that point, you ask yourself, what do you want more? Everybody wants to rule the world, or do you just want to make yourself happy? And, you know, some people who and I'm not, this is not one of these things that's like, aim low, kids. It's not that. Dream big and reach big, but manage your expectations. You know, it's like, what did I say about Clerks when I was a kid? It was like, I needed to have, oh God, what was it? A reasonable amount of unreasonability. You know, like unreasonability is like you can't do this, or fucking people can't fucking fly without the help of a plane. So, you know, you're reasonable enough to be like, that is true. However, I can soar in this way or something like that. Just a reasonable amount of unreasonability, because most reasonability dictates you don't go off and try to make a fucking movie if you've never done that before and stuff. In this day and age, you can do that. You know, everyone's got a fucking movie camera on their phone at this point. So I've always found like reasonable amount of unreasonability will take you incredibly far. It's not an unreasonable amount of unreasonability, because that's, you know, who wants to be around that asshole? But just enough where you're like, you know, I know it's not the standard and the odds are against us, but I think we can fucking, if we all pull together, you know, and I say that often, that's the important fucking, most important part of the equation, man, is like, this is a world of why, particularly now. Like I was born in the 70s, like 1970, right in the beginning and shit. And then ironic comedy, like, kind of developed. I mean, it was always there, but boy, it became huge in the late 80s and early 90s and stuff. Negativity and cynicism, cynical sense of humor and stuff. So, you know, and believe me, I'm not bitching about it. Some of that shit's been my fucking bread and butter, but there's a lot of cynicism out there. That's why those jokes play, because people are like, that's how I fucking feel. There's no hope. Nobody believes in the government anymore and shit like that. Or not even our government, any fucking government. Everyone realizes we're all bought and paid for. It's all big business now and shit like that. So there's cynicism like fucking up the ass coming out the mouth and shit. It's a world of why. And if you tell somebody like, I want to do this, like, why? Particularly if you tell like close friends, you're like, I want to try something I've never done before. Man, I've never fucking picked up an instrument, but I really feel like we could put together a band if we gave it a shot. If, you know, some real trying and shit like that. I feel it there. I don't know why. You get a lot of cats and you're like, throw a rock and you'll hit some motherfucker and be like, why? Why would you think you could do that? Why now? Why you and not me? Why do you think that you're better than me? And all this, why? You just got to find people who are like, why not? You know, so you're like, oh, I'm fucking start a band. They're like, why not? I got nothing to do. Let's fucking do it. People that just dream practically with you and stuff, you know, and then you innovate or you imitate until you can innovate. You just, what do you like? You know, what are the things you do? That's why we try these things. You know, remember fucking Silence of the Lambs? Like, what do we go at what we covet, what we seek. We covet what we see every day. You fall in love with people doing things, the way somebody tells a story in a blog, the way somebody puts up a video on YouTube, the way somebody makes a movie, something like that. Captures you, grabs some part of you where you're like, I don't know why, I have no fucking good reason to say this, but it speaks to me. It's this incalculable connection between audience and material. And that audience member watching that material just aggregates experience, constantly going like, yeah, like I would like to do that. This sounds fun. And when I was a kid, you know, you'd listen to the radio and be like, fuck, I wish I was on the radio. That sounds fun. But it's a fucking pipe dream unless you owned like your own little radio station or whatever. Maybe in high school, you're lucky that high school or college radio station. Now in the age of the internet, you can do that. You can be like, I'm going to do a fucking show. This is a fucking radio show. So, but back then, there wasn't a lot of opportunity, so I guess a lot of people didn't understand that, like, yeah, you can be more than this. Like, people do it all the time. You listen to some fucker on the radio, why not you? You sit there all the time, you're like, man, that fucking person on the radio, I'm smarter than that person, I'm fucking funnier than that person, why not me? There was an opportunity for a little why not me. My whole life, I'd drive past this fucking radio station, little small square box in Monmouth County with a huge fucking antenna and stuff. And I was like, man, what would it be like? And I remember I talked to somebody at one point going, what do you think that radio station costs? Like, I know what it costs. It was a couple $1 million and shit. I was like, for a local radio station? Like, yeah, you got to deal with fucking FCC. You got to deal with all this shit. So, you know, that was always kind of how I hoped to run out my clock. Like when nobody wanted me in film anymore, I'd go sit on a radio for a while and stuff. And then podcasting happened. And now the trade-off for podcasting is you could fucking do whatever you want. It's not even like the fucking radio where you can't say certain things. You can talk about anything. You can talk as loud as you want. You don't even have to stop for commercials. You can go 24 hours. Nobody would stop you.
You going to stick around for 24 hours here?
I will. I might. I absolutely will. I'll let you get more than one question off, I swear. But you could sit there and just fucking go and go and go. That to me was like, that's worth it. I want to do that. The only problem or trade-off is no money. Like, you're doing it for free. You're doing it for passion. But for me, I'm like, fuck it. That's what it's all about. I never got in this business to fucking make money. And so far, I've been very successful at not making money. But I've always gotten into it because I'm like, fuck, I want to tell a story. And, film was the way I could tell the story first because I saw Richard Linklater do it. I imitated until I could fucking innovate and stuff. So I want to make something like that. And there was Clerks and whatnot. And Clerks wasn't even by the standard of like, man, I was trying for Slacker. Boy, I fucked up. But, it wound up being a pathway into it all. So, cats who are like sitting there going like, all right, how does one get started and shit like that? It's very easy. You dream. Like, you daydream like a motherfucker, man. Like, Lawrence T. Lawrence talked about the dreamers of day. It's a very powerful quote. You can find it. I don't know it word for word, man. But the gist of it is like people who dream at night, wake up in the morning, find that all they've dreamed about is vanity. It's just a fucking dream. Powerful people are the dreamers of day because they can fucking dream with their eyes wide open and enact those dreams and stuff. It's a very cool quote, man. It probably doesn't apply to 99.9% of us. Like Lawrence was a very big man in a big life, but you want it to apply to you. You're like, fuck, I want to be a dreamer of day. I don't want to sit there at night and be like, wouldn't that be nice? Then wake up, go to some fucking job I don't like and stuff. Be a dreamer of day where it's just like, I'm going to dream it and I'm going to make it happen in the waking hours. You're going to shape your world so that it looks like something that you'd be more comfortable in and stuff. And not in the way of like, let's get rid of all the lower races. No, that's fucking genocide and horrible and stupid. All this stuff is about arts, kids, not harmful. If you're sitting there going like, yeah, he's speaking to me and I want to hunt children. I'm not talking about harmful things. It's about art. Like there's two things in life, two paths you could take, right? It's destruction, creation.
Yeah.
A lot of people out there, plenty motherfuckers to destroy. They will never run out of people to fucking knock shit down and break it down. The internet was created for all of those people, including me from time to time, who just want to fucking swing a hammer and shit. And then there's creation, which is like you get one shot. You're here for however long, man. You get to create things out of nothing. They talk about everyone has fights about religion and everybody has an idea about God and whatnot. But meanwhile, everybody just overlooks the fact everybody's God. Because you could sit there and create something. You create your own fucking world, characters that breathe and live more than some fucking people. I think about like Star Wars. Mm-hmm. Fucking Han Solo. I'm at the Star Wars panel at San Diego, which didn't go that great for me, but it was a great fucking panel, great panel. And I'm sitting there watching Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher take the stage of the last three of this very amazing panel that was sitting up there. And as there's Harrison Ford at one point before he went back. I'm backstage before he went on stage. I could have balled up a tissue, hit him in the back of the head hard, like fucking. Right. That's how close we were. And the whole time I'm thinking, fuck, man, like this guy, he played somebody I love so much. I believe in that person more than I believe in some blood relatives who I've seen in the real world. Like you connect to that shit in a big fucking bad way and stuff. And so. You look at these things, you're like, I want to be part of that world. I want to do that, and most times the world will discourage you, and right. Particularly the internet. It's very rare you can turn to the internet for fucking support because most cats will fucking shout you out of a good idea. But if you chase it down just a little bit, chase a little whimsy, man, don't be a dick about it where it's like, by hook or by crook, this is manifest destiny. Nothing is manifest destiny. You just got to be amenable to if it doesn't work or something like that, or ready to pivot and change into something else. But as long as you're, you got breath in you, mm-hmm. Every day get up and be like, what do I want to do? Like for me, like think about it. We all do everything we do in life for them. And I don't know who them is in this instance. Parents, work, fucking boyfriend, girlfriend, class, whatever. You live your life by a certain set of standards and rules and things that you do for everybody else. When you're a kid, you live for yourself, and it's a lot of fun, and you dream and shit like that. And of course, we all got to grow up, become responsible. The thing is, that dreaming, man, that's so fucking. That was such a part of who you are today. as an adult, all that childhood dreaming. And then for some reason we shut it off. We're expected to shut it off and grow up and shit. But you need that. And I don't mean you need to play in a fucking sandbox. I mean you need to fucking daydream. And not the kind of I'm in traffic at work and fucking wouldn't it be great if the car could fly. I mean like I'm just going to drive around and fucking think about what I would love in life and stuff. And then you find something that's not that difficult. Not like I'm going to rob Fort Knox, but something that's just like, man, I love these podcasts, or I've seen so many movies, or I watch these fucking videos on YouTube and shit. And even though it's not in my background or my world and nobody's ever encouraged me to do so, I think I want to fucking give it a shot. You take one of those moments for yourself sometime over the course of the next fucking 6 months, and you slowly chisel away at it. You know, you push whimsy. You try to fucking shape the world around it so it happens. You're not this dick who's like, make it happen to others, because you're the only one who could do it with enough power to kind of shape your world. You do that, man, and slowly, you know, you don't set an agenda and stuff like that. It's a side project while real life is going on. But the funny thing is, like, you spend enough time doing it, put enough affection into it, enough attention, enough passion, like anything else and stuff, turns into this thing, to this real thing, this very real thing that becomes who you are, you know, and what you define yourself as, because it allows you to use your voice. And, you know, I say it a zillion times, it's probably fucking tiresome for some, but it's true. Your voice is your only currency in this life. That's it. That's all you fucking get, man. That, and, you know, some people are like, what about a big dick? I'm like, well, you don't all get that or something. So, you know, the currency in life that we all have to spend is our voice. It's that weird fucking perspective that only we have. It's a prism through which we view everything that's completely different from one another, and that's what makes what you think valuable to somebody. So they'll try to shout you out of being an individual the moment you get into some place where they're like, now you're in business and we'll tell you how business goes. You know, in the movie business is very common. You watch people break out with a movie, you know, a small movie or something like that, and then the first thing they do is kind of ill-fit a larger fucking movie on top of them and whatnot. And it's not always one does not always equal one, man. You know, sometimes you just kind of got to play around a while before you aggregate into something bigger, because that aggregation, all of a sudden you got a bunch comes with aggravation. Boy, I sound like a catchphrase idiot right now. But it's true. Like suddenly when you take a step up, everybody wants to take a shot at you, because it's a crab pot out there. Motherfuckers don't really like to see people rise above them or get out of the pot. They'll yank you right the fuck back down, because misery loves company. So, you know, for the idea of fuck, I lost so many words, I lost my fucking place. The idea of sitting there and kind of going like, all right, man, I'm going to try something that fucking other people have and I'm not good at, and I'm going to get shouted down for it by a lot of people, and even people within your world. People that love you will fucking be like, don't do this. And not because they're like, fail like me, but because they care about you. Right. They don't want to see you get hurt when it doesn't work, but what you know and they don't, so you're going to make it work. You're a dreamer of day. And it may not be how they think you're going to do it, but you have an inner standard that you'll hit, and you'll be satisfied when you hit it and stuff like that. You gauge your success on your internal feelings, not, you know, what other people say. If you gauge your success on other people or wait for them to be like, good fucking job, you know, you go hungry for the rest of your fucking life. People are busy with their own stuff. Doesn't make them assholes, but it's just like everyone trying to make their miracle happen and stuff. So yeah, man, I guess now I've rambled. You should talk.
No, you are the guest. You are here to ramble. It's great, and you answered like most of my questions anyway. So but no, it's great. But just pivoting off of some of that.
Good.
You know, one of the things that you've been really, really good at, beyond all of these other things, is you have that fan base that is really, really strong and really committed to you, and you know, and really sticks with you. And it's one of those things where, you know, and as you mentioned earlier, like that's an important part of this, is that you can reach out to them and you know that they'll follow you in new and interesting places. And yet it's one of the things that I often hear from other content creators, that they, you know, they haven't been able to, or they're almost afraid to sort of build up that kind of fan base. And so, do you have any kind of you know, lessons, or what have you learned from having that fan base? How do you think you built it up, and what do you think you can say for others?
Well, there's always a, you know, I guess the need to satisfy the customer, so to speak. So if you have an audience, I guess some people get afraid. They're like, well, then I'll just play to my audience. But everybody does that. Steven Spielberg plays to his audience. His audience is just way larger than most of ours and stuff. play to your audience. Nothing wrong with that, man. That's playing to your fucking strengths and stuff. And you can also try to grow a different set of muscles for yourself. If you're not good at doing something, you could try doing it on a regular basis. Like with the podcasting stuff, I was always pretty good with the turn of phrase as a writer and stuff, and I was always pretty good at Q&A. But after like what is now 8 years of podcasting, like, you know, I'm not bragging and I'm not trying to get laid off of it, but like you know, you're pretty Zen Jedi at that point. You know, you could sit down and talk about anything, right. Because you've got so much practice, and you know how to like be funny if you have to. You know how to like drive a story where it's like, all right, I can feel I'm losing the room. Let me inject a little humor and get him back, and then fucking continue forward, making the point and stuff. So like, you know, the practice certainly helps. Just sitting around talking and talking in that instance of doing the podcast. But you know, for me, I learned with Tusk, that was kind of where I retaught myself. Because Clerks was a movie where I was like, I was the only one that wanted to see it. Nobody knew what that movie was. Mm-hmm. Like, I desperately wanted to see a movie that reminded me of me and my friends. A movie where people sat around talking about pussy and Star Wars. Like, that kind of comedy that nobody had really done before. And I would always sit there in a movie theater and go, how come I don't make a movie where dudes sit around talk about pussy and Star Wars and how we don't understand women and shit like that? One day someone will. And so, you know, I realized nobody's ever going to make that fucking movie. Dude, they don't know who you are. They don't give a shit about you and your friends or what you find funny. If you ever want to see that movie, you're going to have to make it yourself. And I did. And it was Clerks, and it kicked off my career. And then you have a career, and you go into like career management mode at a certain point where you're like, I got to save this. You know, didn't have something worth saving before, so I was fearless when I was like, let me make something. Let me make Clerks. Have nothing to lose. Suddenly you got a career down the road. You're like, well, fucking. You start second-guessing all your decisions because you're like, well, I got to hold on to this now. What if they go away? So Tusk was kind of like liberating because it was a return to the same moment where I was like, I wanted to see this fucking movie so badly, and nobody was ever going to make this stupid movie. And I remembered who I was. Like, you know, fucking, oh my God, I've been here before. It's like Battlestar Galactica. This all happened before. It will all happen again. Like, I'm at the same fucking moment where I'm like, I want to see something that will never exist unless you make it. So I was like, you want to see a stupid fucking Walrus movie? Make it. And I did. And while I was making it, like, I didn't think about, you know, my audience. Like, what is a Jay and Silent Bob fan going to think or something like that? Because I realized, like, the only reason they knew me in the first place was because I followed my gut instinct and did what I wanted to do. When you start trying to guess and do what you think they want you to do, that's even worse, dude. When you think they may want you to do, that way lies ruin, because you didn't get there by showing them the same thing they'd seen before. You got there by showing them something that was different, new, something that nobody would bother fucking doing. So I was like, yeah, man, that's the idea. The idea is like, if I'm happy myself, if I'm like, fuck, this is weird and out there and stuff, yeah, you're going to lose some cats. They might not be into it and stuff. But you're going to thrill other cats. And you're going to bring in new people, too, who are just like, wait a second, I didn't see this coming. You know, the notion of taking a podcast, turning it into a movie, like, it's not like, man, I was going to change the world. But it opened up a few more windows for a bunch of cats who were like, that's my way in. Like, I always wondered how, and now there's my route. You know, it's like everyone tries to go through the front door into the mansion, but like there's many fucking back doors and tons of fucking windows that they don't ever cover. They cover the front door like a motherfucker. Try getting through the front door. Good fucking luck, man. Some do, but that's tough. Back doors and fucking back windows and shit, man, they get created all the time. And so when I was like, oh, I'm going to take this stupid fucking podcast, turn it into a movie, a bunch of people somewhere were like, that's it. That's what I could fucking do. That's my content generator, blah, blah, blah. So I feel like as much as I love my audience dearly, but I think in order to serve them good or bad, I always got to do what I want to do. Be masturbatory. I mean, it's a horrible piece of advice, but like, you know, they're there because you said something that caught their attention. So they're interested in what you have to say. And you know, maybe each thing you say isn't going to be their favorite thing, or each thing you say isn't going to be interesting to them. But they'll appreciate the fact that you're trying to say something different each time. And that's, you know, that's what builds a long tail. You know, where they're just like, oh, shit, he did that thing, or she did that thing, or she always does this. People don't fucking do that, man. You give people a reason to kind of stick around. And that's all you get in this life, man. You get their attention for a microsecond. Right. And, you know, think about it. There's a zillion things to look at, listen to, fucking be engaged in. Like we keep talking about artsy shit and entertainment and blah, blah, blah. We're not even talking about the real world. People engage with other human beings, like have children, wives, husbands, grandparents and shit like that. So with all this, competition for people's attention, when they fucking happen to look over at you, be like fucking Bullseye from Daredevil. You're just throwing fucking everything and desperate to hit a target, man. And playing card becomes a weapon in your hand because you got them for a second before they look on to something else. So it helps to have not like legendary moves, but it helps to have big moves in your corner. They'll notice if they're like walrus movie, and it may not make them stick around, but they'll fucking turn for a second. So yeah, it's you almost I could see where some people are like, boy, it's dangerous having an audience, but for me, it's never been dangerous. It's only been beneficial. And sometimes we've been at odds, me and the audience. Not like I fight with them, but I'll make something that I'm going on a journey that they don't want to go on. Tusk was one of those moments where a bunch of them were like, really? But if they trust you, they'll come back, or you'll do something else, they'll come back. And if they never come back, you had them once, and you should be thankful for that, because billion different people out there to grab their attention, billion different things that are far more interesting than you and shit. The only thing you got going for you is that voice, man. Your voice is your fucking currency, so you spend it on them as much as fucking possible, and a lot of them will stick around and stuff, and become you in the weird way of like you looked at others and you were like, I want to do that, and I'm going to imitate and then innovate. One of the things makes me happiest in this world is losing podcast listeners, because I know I'm losing them to becoming podcasters. They stop consuming and they start making. Right. And I know I make podcasts. I know what it's like. You can't listen to other people's work if you're constantly fucking doing your own. So it's very bittersweet. You get to raise a bunch of people in an audience, but you spend every moment telling them, go out and do this. Go out and do this. Before they figure out how to charge you for this, go out and fucking do this. Before the medium changes, before FCC shuts it down, it's the wild, wild west. You go out and fucking do this too. And you just know, sadly, that when you push them out the nest, they're going to fucking go and not be like, I'm going to live my dreams and keep helping you live yours. I'm going to keep listening to your stuff. They're going to go be generators themselves, content generators. So you lose your audience to become content generators, and it's kind of like, man, I wish they were still here, but what's better than that? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a long tail. Yeah. 5-10 years from now, once they're fucking busy, and once they've done busying themselves getting where they want to go, once they've built their shit, man, and maybe even 10 years, maybe it's every minute, every day, they will remember who sent them there. Like, every day of my life, I think about Richard Linklater. And not like, what's he doing right now? But I think about, if I hadn't seen Slacker, I never would have tried any of this. And my life has been fucking wonderful since the moment I saw Slacker, because it taught me to dream. So, I get it. I get, like, the importance of trying to fucking inspire people, man. Like, to try to tell them, like, this is okay. You could do this. Like, I'm glad you think I'm fucking special at it, but I'm a chimp. You could do it too. So, it's great, and it makes you feel good. And that's really what you should be doing in life. What are you going to do? Accrue a bunch of fucking money and shit? I'm not Scrooge McDuck. I'd rather accrue a bunch of fucking souls who are like, that guy fucking made a difference. The way I think about George Carlin, that's how I hope my audience thinks about me. You know what I'm saying? We're like, he made me fucking think. He made me laugh and shit like that. And, I don't get like a regular HBO special every year to kind of update them. So the podcast kind of take care of that.
Yeah. So one of the other things is just the fact that beyond obviously jumping in and doing all the podcasts, and then Twitter and Instagram and social media, and I mean, you had a website with forums going way back. I mean, you've always been very quick to kind of to make use of these platforms and really use them to connect.
Not Snapchat, though. Snapchat baffles me.
Yeah, I haven't quite figured that one out.
It's fucking Harley Morenstein from Epic Mealtime was trying to explain it to me. My kid was trying to explain it. 2 Harleys tried to explain it to me. And I was like, it doesn't stick around? They're like, oh, it's in your story for a day. I'm like, but what's the fucking point? Like, this shit has to have a long tail. It has to exist forever. So I hit a technology where I'm like, baffles me. And I know it's popular and I know it fucking works and shit, but like for my purposes, I'm like, I don't understand what that would be useful for and stuff. So, and I ain't putting down Snapchat. I know fucking it's awesome and I know it's popular with everybody, but for me, it's one of those things where I'm like, I've hit a place where now I feel like an old man. Snapchat was the first thing that made me feel old.
I had the exact same reaction to it, and I still feel like I have to keep trying because I feel like I don't want to be that old man.
I know. I actually every time I see Harley Morenstein, man, he's just like, you're not on Snapchat yet. And I was like, I don't know if I understand it. I really don't get it. And it does make me feel like, fuck, I'm out of the loop.
I mean, I think the thing about Snapchat, the reason why the kids, I think, like it is they're so savvy now to navigate kind of social media and the permanence of it. And it's scary when something's permanent.
Good point.
Right? So I think that you have that fear, that fearlessness approaching kind of, social media. And
also, it benefits my job for permanence.
Right.
Like, I said this, and you can always go find it and shit. I'm sure there's some things I've said in the past where I'm like, fuck, I wish I had Snapchatted that. Nobody knew I said it. But you're right. They're
so
probably
they feel
like,
that freedom.
Yeah,
posting something on Twitter or Facebook, it's there, part of their permanent record. Whereas Snapchat, they can be themselves. Right. And supposedly it's not going to get out, but that might be false as well.
See, and that's where I think like a businessman, where I'm like, well, fucking, what's the point of doing it if nobody sees it? And they're like, no, the people I want to see it. It doesn't have to be the world. That's smart. Well, but I think just literally explained Snapchat to me and why it works in a way that nobody has been able to.
Yeah, because I think it's brave. It's brave to be yourself, right? Especially when
or in my case, it's like as business. Like if I'm not, I chose at a certain point, wisely or unwisely. Like, because I began as a filmmaker, and then I diversified the portfolio over and over again until finally I was like, well, I guess I'm me for a living. And that's fucking awesome, kids. If you could be paid to be you, you have fucking won the internet. The only problem with that is that, when you're just a director and the movie's over, you can go live a real life. When you're you for a living, it never fucking ends. So, like, when I wake up in the morning, like, that's why Snapchat baffles me, because I'm like, well, why am I going to fucking tell a few people what I'm doing? I have to fucking tell everybody what I'm doing because I'm me for a living and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, it's a weird little tender trap. I would never, like, regret it or say, like, oh, I wish I hadn't done it. But, like, it's just one of those things that when you're you for a living, like, you just realize, like, oh, I guess my personal, like, I make so much of my personal public and stuff. Something like Snapchat doesn't occur to me because I'm like, well, why would I tell 9 people? Why would I only tell 10 people in my life?
Just one day.
Yeah, for one day. But meanwhile, it's like if I didn't have Twitter, Instagram, if I didn't have Facebook, if I didn't have like my life and stuff like that, I bet you I would love it. It creates an adventure. Like you sit there and cry. Now I totally get it. You just literally heard my brain snap back into youthful mode and understand Snapchat. Thank you for that.
All right. Well, I know we're running out of time, but just as sort of a final kind of parting thought, as people are, as everyone's sort of trying to navigate these things and understand, how do they, do all the stuff that we were talking about, sort of, find that dream and go for it. Do you have any kind of, I guess, parting wisdom for folks about, how should they approach it in their own lives?
I honestly like. Somebody asked me last night. They're like, "What's the future of the internet?" And I was like, "Oh fuck, I don't know." But here's what I think it might have something to do with. The first version of the web, as I recall it, because I was around for when that happened, was here's a bunch of content, play some games, look at this movie website and shit. And then the second version of the web, when it grew up, was here's an empty framework. Add yourself. That's what Facebook is. That's what Twitter is. Instagram, Snapchat. All these things where instead of like, let us entertain you, the internet's like, entertain us. Tell us who you are and stuff. So I think what we're going to see is a lot more people figuring out how to be themselves for a living. Like my father couldn't be himself for a living. He worked at the post office and many times often said, I'm a cog in a fucking machine and stuff like that. He didn't have the luxury of like, oh, I can fucking figure out who I am and what I'm about and then engineer the world to get paid for that. And not like I'm getting paid for all that, but I mean to make your living so you're not going to some fucking job that you don't like. Like the thing I've watched over the last 20 years online is jobs created out of fucking nowhere. Like here, man, Shirt Punch, one of my favorite fucking stories in the world. Dude who runs Shirt Punch, I love him to death, man. This is, there are many websites online where 24 hours they make a fucking t-shirt with a really cool image that you could never fucking license for real someplace. it's pop-up shops and they go
Right.
away right away. A lot of them out there and stuff. Shirt Punch was just one of them. This kid up in Canada was doing it. And he worked on it for like 6 months, and like, he's like, my first shirt, man, we sold like a couple thousand. I was like, holy, I think I could turn this into something. He had a real job. He was going to school or whatever the fuck. He left his real job and he dedicated his time to Shirt Punch, man. And then he turned it into something. So much so you're like, rest on your fucking laurels, young man. You created a company where one didn't exist. But then all of a sudden he was like, I'd like to do something else. And he created the company that goes with it, man. What is it? It's like a Loot Crate, but theirs is called something else or something. So it's the box that you order, and then there's a bunch of cool crap in it and stuff like that. Every time I talk to this cat, he innovates that company. It gets bigger and becomes something different. I guarantee you, within 2 to 3 years, the dude's going to be producing films. Like, he has enough fucking means to do so because he built this fucking business out of scratch. That was a business that couldn't exist 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's probably a business that couldn't exist 10 years ago. Sorry, I popped up here really hard. Probably a business that couldn't have even existed 10 years ago. So I think like that's what we're going to see, and everyone should be aiming for is figure out what you bring to the table, man. Your voice is your currency, and shape shit around that so that is what you're doing for a living. And even if it's not like your main fucking job, it's the adjunct. Like, because you are fascinating. You know what I'm saying? Everyone listening has a great fucking story, great perspective. A lot of us like to be, I'm fucking boring. No, you're not. The fact that you're here, the fact that you exist means you're not fucking boring because you're intaking data on a regular basis and spitting it out through your own fucking prism. Your perspective, your thoughts, and what you feel and think are completely fucking unique. You take that uniquity, man, and you figure out what's attractive about it to other people, or what people can use that for. If you're useful to other people, they'll fucking keep you around and stuff, and they'll employ you and stuff. So it's just know that if you're going to make yourself your job, or you make your passion your living, you run the risk of it becoming a job. And it did that for me at one point in the middle of the career. This is a job. My job is a filmmaker, and it began as a passion. Like, if I don't make this movie, I'm gonna fucking die. And then one day I got to a point where I was like, I don't make this movie, I'll make another movie. So that's what I do for a living. So you run the risk of like you love it so much that you make it the thing you do for a living. It's like fucking people get married and divorced and shit. Like, I love you to death, and then one day they're like, I can't fucking stand you. So you got to be careful. But I can't, in my experience, like I've watched people around me. I watched my father and stuff, working through his life before he died and stuff. I can't think of a better way to live in this only possible life we get than for people to be like, I like you and what you think and what you stand for. Here's some money. It's kind of like earned begging. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could go out there and be like, come on, I need some help. Or you could give them something useful that's not practical, like I could fix your engine. But you can make them laugh, you can make them think, you can write something. I mean, the content that you're holding, that you haven't spilled out for the world, and I'm not even being fucking dramatic about this, but you've got something in you that's going to save somebody's fucking life. Like, it's that simple. And people don't believe that. Like, this horseshit. No, I've lived doing this 20 years, talking to strangers, over 20 years now, with make-pretend characters, with fucking podcasts, with whatever the fuck. Every time you reach out to them and stuff, I hear over and over again people who are just like, that thing. And it's never the same thing. It's not like Clerks and everything else sucked. I'll hear Clerks saved my life. Chasing Amy saved my life. Dude, once I heard, I'm not even fucking lying. I know the internet's going to be like, prove it, but it's true. One dude was like, Cop Out. Didn't save his life, but that was the jam he watched with his dad before he died. And fucking like he carries it with him. And it's shit like that. That's what life's about. I mean, you can accrue as much wealth as you want, man, but the true wealth is in touching somebody else's life and lighting them on fire, so they go off and fucking, because what's the alternative? You don't inspire people, they remain uninspired, and they don't go off and do their shit. Like, fuck that. Yeah. Inspire them. Try. Even inspire people that don't fucking like you. I always wonder why the people who are like, I fucking hate them and shit, spend so much energy just burning words on me, where I'm like, take all that passion, motherfucker, and turn it into something. If you really don't like me, the best way to express that is not by jumping online and being like, he's a fucking big fat jerk. It's by being more successful than me. Create your own fucking thing and then be like, look, fuck his shit. My shit is fucking good. And I guarantee you by the time you get there, you won't give a flying fuck about me. The only people that like sit there and kind of dwell on the negative are people that aren't going to take the positive steps themselves. So you could be that. It's fun. It's fun to like bash anonymously on the internet. But I'm telling you, it's far more productive. Take that fucking enthusiasm for like, fuck, I hate that guy. and let it fuel what you want to do. Because look at me, especially if people are like, he's so fucking talentless and lucky, you're absolutely right. So look at me and go like, if this talentless fucking idiot is doing what I want to do, what the fuck is stopping me from doing it? You could do it, man. Anybody could do this shit.
Well, with that, wonderful advice, and hopefully people aren't listening to this for hate reasons. But
They're out there, man. It's the internet.
I guess you're
Let's
right.
be honest. 9 in 10.
We should not turn away our hating audience either. So welcome and
You turn them on. Turn them from haters into productive members of society. And stuff.
absolutely.
You know what Steven Spielberg is? Probably deep inside a guy who was like, fucking hate that one movie. And has spent his life fucking
true.
going like, well, I corrected that mistake. I made better movies.
Now, if we could only find out which movie it was.
Oh my God. And thank those people big time.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was a really great discussion, and I'm sure that everyone is going to enjoy it.
I
quite
loved
a
it,
lot.
and honestly, I said before, again, no bullshit. Like, you guys were a voice in a time when I needed somebody to tell me I was smart and good, because the rest of the world was going, fuck you. So it was really nice to look at those articles and be like, fuck, somebody sees it. I felt like if I died, that at least there was a public record somewhere online where somebody was like, no, I was there, and what he tried to do was this. That was really sweet. Thank you.
Oh, all right. Well, you're welcome, I guess. But again, this was a really great discussion, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Excellent talking to you guys.
And thank everyone for listening, and we'll be back next week without Kevin, but still be good. Still be good.
In spirit.
Exactly. All right. Thanks again. Bye.
The truth will set you free. The truth will set you free. The truth will set you free.